welcome back to my leak series. This time we're going to be talking about music leaks, so let's just jump in. Music leaks may seem like a byproduct of the internet age, but did you know that they go all the way back to the 1960s with the fucking Beatles? Well, back in 1969, the band were recording a new album entitled Get Back. At the time, the band was in their we fucking hate each other phase, so the sessions were very troubled and overall fucked beyond belief. This leads us to recording engineer Glyn Johns, who was hired to fix up and make an album out of the 70-ish hours of music that the sessions produced. After making a rough mix of the album, he gave each of the band members a copy on vinyl, to which they thought it sounded like shit. This led to the album being remixed and changed a shit ton of times over the span of a year before Glyn was told to fuck off and Phil Spector was brought in. He would end up doing the final mix and master on the released version of Get Back, called Let It Be. Let It Be would be released in May 1970 as the Beatles' final album.
But wait, what about those goddamn leaks you're talking about, you clickbait fuck?
Well, rewind a few months back to September 1969, where a radio station in America had obtained a new Beatles record that no one else had. It featured new songs that no one outside of the band and their inner circle had heard, but it wasn't an advance or a promo copy. Instead, it was a bootleg. Soon after, other DJs started to get copies of the record and started to broadcast its tracks too. It's believed that one of these broadcasts were recorded as in January 1970, Kum Back made its way to stores. Despite its frankly disgusting fucking title, it's actually a relatively clean recording as far as early 1970s bootlegs are concerned. But how the hell did this get out there in the first place? Well, remember those vinyl copies given to the band? As it turns out, someone was a leaker. No one is 100% sure who exactly leaked their copy, but all the signs point to John Lennon. He was in the States in September and was doing an interview for a reporter. Maybe the LSD got to him or some shit, but for some reason, unknown to everyone but him, John gave his copy of the Let It Be mixes to the reporter, who would later leak it to the radio broadcasters. Aside from being the first music leak, Dark Seaman is also known for being the first Beatles bootleg ever, according to Wikipedia. So that's cool, I guess. The Beatles never spoke about it to my knowledge, so who knows if they even knew it existed. Kanye West is surprisingly a real person that lives among us. Only said that so I can make an Amogus joke, even though it makes me feel 20 years old or so. Fuck. Ye is such a mythical person in modern rap that it comes as no surprise that his fans are beyond devoted to his music, to the point they make stuff like Kanye 2049, which is a fan album that mixes elements from all of Kanye's albums and features into one honestly amazing listening experience. Efforts like these are aided massively by leaks. Kanye has an entire subcommunity dedicated to leaks, like many other rappers do. But the difference between him and the others is how fucking hardcore and into leaks Kanye diehards are, with the perfect example being the Kanye West tracker. The Ye tracker does not track Kanye in real time like the name might suggest, although there's actually been attempts to do that, so expect that in 2023. Rather, it is a spreadsheet featuring every known Kanye West leak or rarity in existence. You can find anything from old demos before Ye was even signed, to songs about DJ Khaled's son. But as there's so much to talk about, I just want to focus on one type of leaks: the group buy. To those out of the know, the idea of a group buy is going to sound like the stupidest fucking thing you've heard all week. Basically, a group buy is when multiple people come together to buy a certain leak, with the intent of releasing it outside of private circles. Think digital drug dealing, but with music. Sounds kinda stupid, right? But it makes a little more sense with Kanye's leaks, since they range from prices in the modest hundreds of dollars to literal thousands. Yeezys aren't cheap, folks. So, this brings up a pretty major question. Are these leaks any good? Well, that's kind of a hard question to answer. Kanye leaks are like Kanye himself. They both have high highs and holy fuck lows. Group buys are a pretty good example of this. For the good, look at this zip of Graduation stuff that was successfully bought back in March of this year. You got stuff like Stems for Big Brother and I Wonder, which is P. Kanye if you've never heard it. A weird instrumental of Flashing Lights that I find kind of bad if I'm being honest. And some other Graduation era stuff. One of the standout tracks for me is Got Money, which is an early version of Can't Tell Me Nothing, supposedly back when it wasn't a Ye song. Rather, a feature for some dude named Young Jeezy. This is the part of a video where I joke about how this guy is one of those no-name rappers that no one outside of 2007 would even know, but apparently he has 1 million subscribers and will probably be more famous and respected than I will ever be, so...
Let up the suicide doors. I will take my life, homie, please don't take yours.
Back to Got Money. It's interesting here, but I wouldn't say it tops Can't Tell Me Nothing, like, at all. Jeezy's hook is not that good in my opinion, but his ad-libs were reused in the final song and I'm just fine with that. Overall, this was actually a pretty good group buy. That was worth the money in my opinion. Compare this to a very nearly successful group buy of an unreleased but completely finished Kanye verse on a song called No Problem by... The reason this went unreleased was due to Kanye's whole religious awakening he had near the time of the song's original release, which conflicts with the ungodly lyrics of the song. The reason I'm mentioning No Problem here is because the song was gonna sell for, get ready for it, $1,250 until someone leaked it and saved some folks some big money. No Problem is not a bad song at all. It's just not worth $1,250. If this was like Wolves or Power, maybe the price would be the tiniest bit fair. But as a dude living in the lower middle class, I don't think it should have sold for more than $300 at the absolute max. I'm glad it didn't sell, but it really makes you wonder how much some tracks have been sold privately. One worrying sell was one for the legendary Can You Be. Can You Be is a Yeezus 2 So Help Me God era song. It is arguably one of the most sought after Ye songs. Back in 2017, a leaking group called Music Mafia tried to group buy a later version of the song for 2 Bitcoins. This might sound hilariously low to someone living in 2010, but in June 2017, 1 Bitcoin was worth about $2.5 grand, meaning that Can You Be had an asking price of $5,000. This obviously failed since the Ye leaking community was very small when compared to nowadays. It's unknown if it was sold to a private seller or not, but if it was, either Can You Be is the best song Kanye will ever make in his lifetime, or some dude missed out on tens of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin. Radiohead is very hard to describe for someone who's never heard them past Creep. They're a band that seemingly changes genre with every album they make. Hell, it changes mid-album sometimes, so what would be a good place to start? Well, in my opinion, that would be OK Computer. OK Computer is often considered one of the best albums of not just 90s, but of all time by many people. And I can agree with that, as an album with 0 bad tracks and like 1 alright one. The rest range from great to top 100 songs of all time, in my opinion. Back in 2017, the band released a 20th anniversary deluxe version of the album, in the same vein as many other bands have done. On streaming, it's basically just a standard remaster with B-sides stitched to the back. I'd say that's a bad thing though, as despite its lack of new material outside of the 3 somewhat new songs, it's not the worst remaster I've heard of. If you were to buy the limited special edition though, you would not only get the entire album on vinyl, but a special cassette tape too. It contains demos, live recordings, and even a ZX Spectrum program. It sounds all good, but what about those leaks though? Well, back in May 2019, a dude named Zimbra joined a Radiohead Discord server with the goal of finding someone to fact check the authenticity of a recording he had. Eventually, Zimberg talked with another guy named Rhett, to whom he spilled the beans they had 18 hours of OK Computer era stuff. Rhett probably thought he was bullshitting until Zimmer posted samples from the 18 hours that literally no one had heard up to this point. And And Red was a super duper knowledgeable Radiohead lore master from what I've heard, so this came as a massive shock to him. In preparation for the shitstorm, Red got all the people he trusted and told them about the situation in a group chat, which would later evolve into a Discord server. As everyone's asking prices were $50 for live stuff and $500 for studio and rehearsal stuff. It was calculated that it would cost about $150,000 in total to buy everything. I can see the Kanye leakers weeping in the corner as I speak. This was outrageous, Red and his friends exclaimed. So they ran to r/Radiohead to publicize the sale and attempt to spread the word. Honestly, I'm not sure what the original purpose was, but soon after, Zimmer became target numero uno to Radiohead fans. There was a massive unrest all across the internet because, fun fact, people don't want to pay fucking PS5 prices for recording of Tom York beatboxing. It was mocked by Redditors and even the mainstream media. 4chan, like they always do, took it to the extreme by threatening to dox him if he didn't release the goods. Whether that was a bad thing or not is up to you, but Zimmer gave into the pressure and released a full 17 hours of content to the world on June 3rd. A few weeks later, Radiohead themselves officially released the leaks on Bandcamp as a charity release. It's mostly the same as the original leak, except for the omission of copyrighted material that wasn't Radiohead, like audio from James Bond films and stuff like that. This was really cool at the time because I literally can't think of any other musician responding to the leak by fucking releasing it. If anything, most try to get that shit ripped off the internet like a speedrun, but like the chads they are, Radiohead just decided to put it out there, and that's really cool. 17 hours of music is definitely a daunting length for any person to listen to, so I'm going to try my best to talk about the most interesting or best stuff on each disc. This one begins off pretty strong with a song named Poison. Its most notable quality is it's actually 2 songs in one. It features elements from Exit Music and Life in a Glass House from Amnesiac, but it's not exactly a perfect mix of the two, like a mashup. The next track of interest is the first of many recordings of the song Attention, which first appeared on the OK Not OK tape as a Tom York solo track. This version is taken from a soundcheck, so there's now a full band arrangement which was absent from the tape version. Later discs see it evolving closer to the OK Not OK demo. The first holy grail of the mini-discs is the full band version of True Love Waits, aka the Radiohead song that took 20 years to come out. Long story short, this song was first played in 1995 during the Benz era, but it would linger around until 2016 when it was finally released on a moon-shaped pool. During this 21-year period, the song was only played acoustically until it moved to piano in 2015. This led many fans to wonder if the song was recorded in a studio pre-moon-shaped pool, and as it turns out, it was. Multiple times actually, but the mini-disc version is kind of disappointing if I'm being honest. It's not bad, but when you see full band True Love Waits on a track list, you expect it to be grand and epic and not simple and empty feeling. There's not even an acoustic guitar for crying out loud. If anything, the fan-made band version from like a decade ago is way better. Moving onwards, we move to the first live recordings of the mini-discs. A lot of these recordings are good in archival sense, but most had already been available on the internet prior to the leak. What had been heard though are mini sound check recordings. If you're unaware, sound checks are when a band is setting up for a show and making sure things don't sound bad. This may sound boring as fuck, but many bands will use this time to play songs that they usually won't play on tour. For example, the recordings on this disc are from the later parts of the Ben tour in spring 1996, so about a year out from OK Computer's release. Airbag is one of those songs, and that song was played live 3 times in 1996. It was so rare that up until these recordings leaked, there was only one performance of the song from 1996 known about. Speaking about Airbag, the version on this disc has a very different vibe. It sounds like a cut from the Bends, mixed with the somberness of OK Computer. I would best describe it as reflecting on a car crash months after, rather than the album's more straight out of the hospital vibe. I should also mention there's a later, closer to the album version on disc 4. The last song I want to mention for this disc is the early Paranoid Android. It's structurally the same, excluding the unfinished guitar parts, until it just abruptly stops. It literally just stops after the Rain Down section. It's not even like a rough cut. The band just stops playing. Apart from that little oddity, the only thing to talk about is Tom York's drunken slurs of lyrics. He may be a poet, but when he's figuring out the words, magic resonates from that man's voice box. Disc 2. Standout from this disc is the version of motion picture soundtrack on it. NPS has been called one of the band's most hauntingly beautiful songs of all time since release on Kid A. It's hard to describe why, but there's just something in that recording that can break people in two, if you know what I mean. The version on disc 2 shifts from the drones of the final version to something similar to, and I hate to say this, but Oasis's Champagne Supernova. Maybe it's a different key, but this version gives us the feeling of melancholy rather than the full-on bleak depression of the Kid A version. It sounds a tad bit happy in my opinion, if I'm being completely honest. There's also another take on the disc, if you want to hear that. Another really interesting inclusion is 3 mini takes of a song that shares the same chord progression as Exit Music. Each only lasts like a minute, but it's really interesting to get a glimpse of a version of the song with more active drums and a faster tempo. Next up is a much more relaxed version of Let Down, which was already pretty relaxing by OK Computer standards. Can't explain why, but I just like this version despite it not being the best of quality in the playing department. Some other songs I want to talk about briefly include Risk of Suffocation, which has a Benzer B-side feeling to it, and a pretty nice guitar part. Ride a Pony, these are actual names of the songs, so please don't fucking kill me, has an Airbag-style intro riff. That's pretty nice. And Poison Lake is another take of Poison, but with a little less Glasshouse and a little more Exit Music. Disc 3. This disc is pretty tame in comparison to the others in content, but there's still some interesting songs. Motion picture soundtrack appears in live form from a radio session. This was already available, but in extremely low cassette recording quality. Now, it's in master quality and it's a really good recording. Nude makes his first appearance and is very similar to the version on the OK Not OK cassette, except for one difference. The lyrics are about sex. For a song called Nude, the final verse is not dirty one bit, but this version is all about it. Lastly, there's an early version of No Surprise, which is a full band version of the demo on the cassette. Tom played this version solo in 1995, but it's surprising, no pun intended, to hear how everything but the lyrics stayed more or less the same from rehearsal to release. Disc 4. It's all about rehearsing with this one. No Surprises on this disc is basically the studio version until the ending, where the band just fucking goes crazy and does this amazing outro that kind of conflicts with the rest of the song a little bit, but is absolutely cool. Taurus is an early version of the Taurus with a different melody, like the version of Palo Alto on this disc. It's also worth a mention that Tom sounds fucking tired on alto. Like shit. Sleep or something, dude. Disc 5 is quite the banger as it starts off strong with a legendary 8-minute Paranoid Android. By this point, the song is very similar to the earliest live versions, with actual lyrics that make sense, unlike Disc 1. The most notable part about this is the completely different ending. I'm a big fan of this ending. Honestly, I like it way more than the final version. I think it fits way better with the song structure. My attention reappears, and I just want to say this really sounds like something from Pablo Honey. Makes me wonder if this was a leftover from those days that was repurposed within scraps, but who knows. Nude is back in rough and raw form as this acoustic recording from a shitty old cassette. Hurts my ears, but I like how Tom does a 6/8 rhythm on his guitar. It adds a really cool touch to the song. I also got completely different lyrics too, none of which are shared with even the Disc 3 version. Disc 6, James Bond Edition. Half of this disc is recordings from James Bond movies, but there's still some stuff worth talking about. The big item of this disc is the demo of Last Flowers, off In Rainbows Part 2. Aside from Lift, this might be my personal favorite from all of the demos. I lack the words to explain why, but I just love the hell out of this demo. Disc 7, Capitalism. Our guarantee to you is about satisfying you, the consumer who consumes the product. Absolute classic. Should have been a fucking B-side or something. Last Flowers appears in full band form, and I kind of just don't like it that much. Blame it on the shitty mixing, but I just don't dig this version. And please welcome Karma Police for its first appearance. This is uber early with no piano and more of Tom's word salad. The most interesting part here is how the lyrics weren't "when you mess with us" yet. Rather, it's "when you fuck with me." I can't fucking sing. This lyric actually made its way up through the live premiere, until the lyrics were mostly finished by mid to late 1996. Airbag comes back strong with its heavy version, which sounds like a Benzer B-side. It has a solo missing from the album cut and some weird wah pedal action on the second verse. Disc 8, Live. It's just called Live. This is the first disc where he don't have that much to talk about since it's just mostly live performances. The acoustic demos on this one are fine though, as with the live performances. Disc 9, Rehearsals. Again, the first version of Common Police on this disc is bizarre as hell, to say the very least. First off, by guitars, only bass is allowed here. Second, there's a completely different drum part that hides the energy of the song by like 50%. Lastly, there's this vocal melody that nearly laughed my ass off at. I'm glad they changed that, but this is such like an interesting version of Common Police. Makes me wish they did like a remix that was like this. Last Flowers is another full band version that I don't like that much, but with the addition of heavy clipping and audio tearing. My guess is that on this day of recording they turned everything up but didn't try to level out the mix to prevent the mixer from overloading, and thus they got clipping. Letdown Returns is another rehearsal that sounds similar to Disc 2's take. The main difference here is the inclusion of organ and the slight detuning of the song. It's not major, but it's like a 10-cent difference, and that makes it stand out to me at least. Life in a Glass House has its first full band appearance here, and dear God, does the mixing absolutely kill this one for me. Everything except the vocals and organ are pushed to the back, and the organ sounds really bad up front in the mix. I don't have the time to explain good mixing versus bad mixing, but Glass House could have had a way better mix. Disc 10, Same As It Ever Was, Edition. More of the same with this disc, so I'll keep it brief. Letdown has a rehearsal that's too fucking loud according to the OK MINIDISC doc that I've been using as a track listing. You'll Never Know is a quite nice little demo that's worth listening to in my opinion. There's a acoustic version of Common Police that's also pretty good. Disc 11, On Tour Edition. As the name suggests, there's some live cuts and even some recordings from the band's tour bus, which is okay. There's actually a noticeable jump in recording quality, so maybe Tom got a new recorder mic at this time, so congratulations 1996 Tom York. Disc 12, 11, 2. Everything's live this time. The only mildly interesting thing is how I promise using an electric guitar instead of an acoustic. Disc 13, Field Recordings Edition. A lot of this disc are field recordings and random shit that no one really cares for. There's a funky drum solo during an instrumental track that I kind of find interesting. Polyethylene 2 has a demo that I like. It's just nice to hear. Disc 14. I'ma just stop naming the discs, okay? This is a disc before we head into the studio stuff, aka the good shit. So I'll keep it brief. There's a really good live recording of Lift that's like the Pink Pop version that everyone knows about, but different. Stampeding Elephants is a really good instrumental that reminds me of Lift in a way and really makes me wish they worked on it more. There's a few acoustic versions of Airbag which may not sound interesting, but the difference here is that these are live. As I said before, no one knew that Airbag was played live this much in 1996 until the leak happened, so it's really interesting. Disc 15, Studio. This is a disc with a song that everyone knows about from the leak, so why waste my time dodging it? Ladies and Gentlemen, another Lift No. 5. Lift may not be the most deepest hitting, lyrically rich, or technically complex song in Radiohead's vast library, but in my opinion, it's their best song. It's a song that would have been a massive hit across the world because it's just an amazing song, flat out. It's arranged perfectly, the lyrics are great, and that ending, man, gives me fucking shivers every time, and I literally cannot name another song that does that. The OK Not OK version is good and all, but it just wasn't on the same level as live versions like Pink Pop 96. It just lacks the impact that the live versions had. But Disc 15, it has that impact. It has this cool ass intro taken from some Japanese commercial, I believe. Then you hear the first B5 chord and you're just like, everything here blows the release version out of the water. The strings, holy fuck, the strings. I literally can't tell if they're synth or not, but they're so fucking good. The only complaint here I have is that there's this sidechain ducking effect on the ads during the chorus, which disappoints the hell out of me since the Pink Pop version got that one right. In summary, Lift would have made Radiohead billions of dollars, but they declined that because they're cool like that. As for the rest of the disc, it's really just minor mixing differences. Letdown had this ending guitar shift to the intro like the live version, which is kind of cool. No Surprises has a interesting secret revealed by this disc though. Apparently everything was recorded at half step down, then sped up to standard, which explains why the album version is such a fucking pain to play in guitar, since it's like a few cents off, and it might be an F half sharp if I remember correctly, so it's just not good to play in guitar. Disc 16, This is a early version of the track listing for the album with some differences, but it's mostly just the album unmastered. Lift has 2 mixes here, labeled as finished. The first one is really similar to the Disc 15 version, except for handing differences and some volume mixing stuff. It sounds a little more dynamic overall. Chorus ducking still sucks though, since it's a little more noticeable and distracting in my opinion, but I'm just a little nitpicker like that. The second version is louder overall, but the guitars are turned down. It's a little too crisp in my opinion, so Disc 15 Lift is the best in my opinion. Polyethylene Part 2 has distorted vocals, so yeah. Disc 17, more on master tracks. Not much to say what I haven't said before. Disc 18, The Last. This is the last disc and it's anticlimactic. It has 6 recordings of Tom doing a reminder a cappella style, and I'm just not a big fan, but okay. There's some duplicates from 15 and 16 that shouldn't exist. But the crowning achievement of this entire leak is Tom York beatboxing to a scene from Halloween. Clearly this is the best one from the disc. And that's the leak, and that's my leak series. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, probably should get this out earlier, but I was just having stuff going on in my life, you know. My next video will be coming out hopefully sooner, but I think it'll be on a pretty interesting topic that no one's talked about, so I hope you enjoy that one. Bye.
It's the first day of the rest of your days. So lighten up, squirrel.